If you're wondering how to get out of debt, this is how you do it. What's up everyone, David here and welcome back to Free to Be. Now in today's video, I want to talk about some methods that you can implement into your life to help you get out of debt if that's something you're struggling with. Now, not every single one of these might work for you in your situation, but there's some things to consider here because these are tried and true ways to help get out of debt. So a lot of people have used these methods before in the past, and that's why I'm sharing them with you here today. Now, as always, before I get started, if you are new to my channel, I cover financial literacy here in an effort to track my progress to financial independence, and hopefully by doing that, I'm creating valuable content that you and others can use in their pursuit of financial independence as well. So if you haven't done so already or are new to the channel, please take a moment and just click the subscribe button down below. It's a completely free action to take, costs you absolutely nothing, and it does help support the channel. And if you're not new and returning again, thank you for coming back. All right, so look, it's inevitable in this country, in the United States, people struggle with debt, a lot of people. And I find that a lot of the younger folks, people in my generation and people even younger than me, are really also struggling with it because they might not have seen how their parents managed it before them. And so now it's a challenge that they must overcome. Whether you're struggling with student loan debt or high interest credit cards or any other kind of debt, how do you work your way out of it? And as I mentioned, not all of these might work for you, but these are strategies that do work. So try them out and see which works best for you and stick to it. And that's really the number one strategy here is if you stick to the plan that you put in place to help yourself get out of debt, you will eventually get out of debt. You just have to make sure that you stick to whatever plan or whatever routine or whatever strategy you decide to work and implement into your life. And I do think that all of these are helpful, so make sure you tune in for the whole video. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out your approach. Do you want to snowball the debt payments and figure out how to pay them slowly with the smallest balance first and work your way into the biggest balance? Or do you want to just take on the biggest balance and then work your way to the smaller balances? Whatever approach is fine. Personally, I stick to the approach of paying down the highest interest balance first, whatever size it may be. The size of the debt doesn't really matter to me as much as the size or the amount of interest I'm paying. So that might be a strategy that works for you. But really what you want to do here, and the first and most important step, is to come up with the strategy that you want to use. And again, there is no right strategy, there is no wrong strategy. The key is to have a strategy in place, follow those outlines and those guidelines that you put in place, and work your way out of debt. It's not going to happen overnight, and it doesn't really happen easily. You have to really work on it. But once you figure out where you want to go and how you want to target your efforts, I think that's the biggest hurdle to overcome in this journey. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do after you figured out your strategy is work on figuring out how to best consolidate some of these different debts that you have so that you are paying as little interest as possible as you navigate the waters to become debt-free. Now, this is key because the lower your interest rates are going to be, the quicker you're going to be able to pay off the debt. If you're being charged $200 to $300 of interest a month, then your $400 payment towards these debts is not going to make as big of an impact as if you were only paying $50 of interest a month. So shop around and figure out ways to consolidate your high interest debt into something that is a more manageable interest rate so that you can actually make a dent in these debt amounts. Nobody should be paying anything over 8% for private or consumer debt. That's just crazy. So if you have anything in the teens or even the 20s, make sure you consolidate ASAP. And really what that's doing is making sure that more of the money that you're contributing to these debts every single month is paying down the principal so that you can become debt free. Otherwise, it's going to feel like a struggle that's never ending, and you'll really only see a dent of maybe a couple $1,000s a year. And that's really not going to be motivating when it comes to paying down debts. Now, if you don't want to take on the burden of a new loan to consolidate some other loans, then the next approach might be right for you. So the next thing you can do if you didn't consolidate your loans but do have some high interest debt is to contact the debtor and see if they can lower your interest rates. This is the perfect time in 2020 where we were dealing with all these different financial crises, it was the perfect time to reach out to these folks because more often than not, they're willing to work with you. They would much rather offer a lower interest rate than to have somebody default on their debt. So there's no pain in it. Just give them a call and see if they're willing to work with you. Now, I've done this twice, and the most recent time was with a credit card where they were charging me somewhere like 13 or 14%, and I just called them and said, hey, I've had this card for a while, there's a little bit of a balance on here, I've been paying on time every month, can we lower the rate? And I ended up getting an 8.5% interest rate on a credit card, which is pretty amazing. And since then, the balance has totally been paid off, but I'm just pointing out that they are willing to work with you, so it doesn't really cost you anything but a little bit of time to get them on the phone to see if you can negotiate down a better interest rate. Now, to kind of tack on to working down the interest rate through your credit card company or through your debtors, what you can also do when you're on the phone with them, specifically if you've had, a credit card with a balance, that's been spanning over 5+ years and you just haven't been able to pay it down, you've been making payments every single month, you could try to settle with them. Now, sometimes if you go through companies to do this, it could adversely impact your credit score, but it doesn't hurt to talk to the company that you're dealing with and just kind of let them know that you might be facing some kind of financial hardships, you want to settle the amount, and in return what you will do is close the account once they're done, and sometimes they're willing to do that with you. Now, I tried this approach right out of grad school because I did carry a large sum of credit card debt at that time, and I was trying to figure out ways that I could go ahead and reduce that as soon as possible. And what ended up happening was I didn't actually settle the debt amount, but they put me on some financial hardship program that basically paused interest on that credit card for 2 years. And that allowed me to make payments that went straight to the principal each and every month. And believe it or not, in 18 months, I was able to completely eliminate the amount that I owed on that credit card just because they paused the interest payments. So that's another approach that you can take as well if you want to figure out creative ways to eliminate high interest debt. Now, the next strategy you can use to eliminate debt is to refinance your mortgage if you have one. And again, this is one of those strategies that is all about decreasing your interest rates. Specifically on high dollar loans, like a mortgage, the lower your interest rate, the better off you're gonna be. That's less money that you have to pay each and every month in interest payments and more that you're contributing towards your principal. And what this will also do is reduce the mortgage payment amount in terms of the total sum, which frees up some cash that you can use to pay off other debt. So this again is something that you definitely want to take advantage of when the time is right and when the market is right for you to do so, because if interest rates are low and you locked in a rate 3 or 4 years prior to the all-time low interest rates that are available now, it definitely makes sense to refinance your home, bring your interest rate to a lower, more manageable amount, reduce your overall payment amount, and then you'll have some extra cash to use around, and pay off other debts, bolster up savings, whatever the case may be for you. But definitely something you should explore if you haven't ever refinanced before, and if you have an interest rate that's higher than the national average at the time you're looking into refinancing. Now, this next strategy seems a little counterintuitive because I preach this on my channel all the time, and a lot of other folks preach it on financial literacy channels as well, about how to bolster up savings and make sure you have all this money in savings. But at a certain point, if you have a decent amount of savings, but also now carry a lot of high interest debt or just debt in general, it doesn't make sense to keep saving more money. What you should be doing after you have a nice little nest egg or emergency fund set up is stop contributing to that savings and focus all of your efforts on eliminating this debt. Because at a certain point, it just doesn't make sense to save any longer if you have this debt looming over you as well. Because if something should arise, if you should, for example, lose your job, a lot of that money that you've saved is really just going to be covering the interest of this debt that you have. So if you have enough savings, stop saving and use that money and focus it on paying off all of your debt. That's just a practical way to do it. You don't need to have 4 years worth of living expenses in reserve if you have $50,000 worth of debt. Get rid of the debt and then shift your energy back to saving some more. And finally, the real and most important strategy, in my opinion, is to commit to paying off your debt. If you're just haphazardly paying off some debt casually here or there, saving a little bit of money, you're never going to be out of debt. If you're just kind of into paying off some debt, but really are spending just as much each and every month, you're never going to be out of debt. The key is to focus and commit to paying off debt. Once you have that focus, once you have that dedication in place, you'll be able to do it. Again, it's not something that you can can do overnight. And it does take some time and will take some effort, but it can be done. So really just commit to it. If this is something you want to do, make sure you have the plan, make sure you have a strategy that works for you, commit to it, and get going immediately. I mean, there's really no point in delaying, because as long as you carry debt, you'll have debt. So if you want to focus on it, make sure you focus on it, commit to it, and before you know it, you'll be debt free. All right guys, well that's all I had for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you have any other tips or strategies, you can leave those in the comments down below and let me know what those are. If you are new to the channel or haven't done so already, don't forget to take a moment and just click the subscribe button down below. Again, it's a completely free action to take and it really does help support the channel, and see you next time.